It's great to meet everyone. As Rebecca said, my name is Sean, and I'm here from IDEO.org, which is a nonprofit design firm based in San Francisco, California. I'm going to talk to you guys for the next hour about human-centered design, and I'm super excited to do it. But I just want to skip ahead of the agenda, and I'm going to go back and forth on the slides. But the thing about human-centered design is it's one thing to have me stand up here and talk about it. That's not the best way to learn it, right? The best way to learn it is by doing. So I'm going to explain the sort of basics of what I think is important about human-centered design and how it's relevant to this awesome day at Northeastern. But then we're going to roll up our sleeves and spend 30 to 40 minutes actually going through a design challenge. So get you guys out of your chairs and hopefully get the blood flowing early this morning. Then we'll come back together at the very end here and just sort of what I would like to do is get us all into a mindset that's going to sort of make the rest of the day as powerful as possible. So I'm here to talk about, the title of my talk is From Inspiration to Action, Advancing Social Innovation Through Human-Centered Design. And as I was thinking about putting this talk together, I was thinking, like, what is the role that human-centered design plays in all of this? And it was too late to change the name of the title for my talk because we'd already finalized it. But I really think that the role that human-centered design plays is that it makes for effective action. So it's totally fantastic that everyone here is in the room today and cares about making the world a better place. The role that human-centered design plays in that is it can make your action much more effective. It's one thing to have the intention to change the world. It's something else entirely to actually do it effectively. And I firmly believe that human-centered design it's a simple approach that can turn all of us into designers and give us a tool in our toolkit or our toolbox, whatever metaphor you want to use, that can help us change the world better. It's pretty straightforward and pretty easy, except you just have to practice at it. So we're going to spend 30 to 40 minutes doing a small sample design challenge today. And then most importantly is just to take what you learned or you already know and go out there into the world and practice it on bigger and bigger challenges. So that's what we're going to do over the next hour. And I'm going to start off, as I said, with just a quick run through of how I define human-centered design and then give you some examples of how we're applying it in the world at IDEO.org. So this is my definition of human-centered design. Human-centered design is a process that begins with gaining deep empathy for people's needs, hopes, and aspirations for the future. At its core, human-centered design is optimistic, but it also starts and always goes back to people. If you have a design challenge that you're trying to tackle, human-centered designers begin with deep, qualitative research with the community that we're trying to help, that we're trying to design with and for. So human-centered design always starts with people, and we do everything we can to understand the needs and aspirations and desires of the community that we're designing with. But the thing with human-centered design is that it starts very tangible, right, with the community, deep qualitative research, but then we want to get creative as quickly as possible. And human-centered design provides a process for oscillating back and forth quite rapidly between the practical and the concrete of people's lives, but then very quickly synthesizing what we learned and getting to the place where we're brainstorming and being as creative as possible. And at that point, we're sort of way up here in this abstract land. But then once we have new ideas, another key part of human-centered design is rapid prototyping, right? So don't sit inside your classrooms or your studios or your office buildings and spend 6 months or 6 years honing in and making that idea as perfect as possible. Instead, through rapid prototyping, we want to get our ideas out of our heads and out into the world as quickly as possible, right? We want to fail early and we want to fail often, but we want to do it quickly and rapidly, right? Because the point is no matter how good your idea is, it's not going to be perfect, right? There's going to be many, many things wrong with it. So by making it as real as possible, as quickly as possible, and testing it with the community, you can get feedback, right? And so you bring your abstract idea back down into the very concrete of the community as quickly as possible. And you get feedback from them, and then this process starts again. You can head back to your classroom or your design studio and be like, okay, what did we learn from the prototyping? And now how do I need to change and modify my initial approach? And it's a cycle over and over and over. So if you think about human-centered design, IDEO, the parent company of IDEO.org, started in Palo Alto. And originally, they were applying human-centered design to the sorts of products that you would probably imagine in your head when you hear the word design. So they worked to create the first laptop computer, the first mouse, I believe for both Microsoft and for Apple, right? Like industrial design, very product-focused. But quickly they realized that this human-centered design process worked equally as well, if not better, for lots of much more complicated systems and services. They did a project in San Francisco in which they redesigned the school lunch system for the city of San Francisco. This was they'd had a system or a service in place since the 60s, and no one had ever really thought how it should change or be modified to reflect the realities of today's students. And so human-centered design worked quite well to redesign and reimagine a pretty complicated system there. Going to an even bigger scale, IDEO worked with the US government to design the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, right? Starting with individual Americans and trying to understand, hey look, what are the needs of individual Americans as it relates to money and savings and credit cards and all of that? Then how do we design a federal bureau that best serves their needs? So again, they used the same human-centered design process. So a few years ago, and this is sort of where my story starts with IDEO, is that they started to realize, hey look, this works pretty well for the US government, for school lunches. What if we started to apply this in the social sector? And what would it mean to pursue sort of really serious and important social change using human-centered design? So IDEO.org began, I guess, September 2011, about 4 years ago now. And we've been using the human-centered design process to tackle all sorts of projects, both domestically here in the States, and then also sort of more common international projects. So here's an example of a teff planter, which is the tiny grain that goes into injera, if you ever have Ethiopian food. A new type of teff planter in Ethiopia that we redesigned using the human-centered design process. So again, something that looked a little like the mouse or the laptop, a very tangible product that we used human-centered design to reimagine. We also did a project recently with the Amplify program that I'm a part of, where we were redesigning a system for reporting gender-based violence in Nairobi. And again, we both came up with this is a new type of box found in different locations around the city for actually reporting incidents of gender-based violence. Then we also helped them set up this system for processing the reports that came in and providing services to those that had filed complaints. And so it was both a physical product, but then also the much larger system around it. And then another project that was really interesting is we have worked in Zambia, Tanzania, and Kenya to redesign reproductive health for teenage women. And this is a teen-centered health clinic that we created in Lusaka, in Zambia. So again, it's both sort of a physical place that we were designing, but then it's also the system around it for making teenage girls feel welcome and comfortable coming to the center. So before I jump into a little bit more of the details of what I think is most important about human-centered design, I just wanted to sort of throw a couple free resources that are out there for you guys. On the left, if you Google Design Kit, it's a free book that actually was just officially published yesterday. It's also a website that's full of human-centered design methods and mindsets that can help you guys. Hopefully you're going to leave this workshop here today super excited about human-centered design. And if you want to run a bit further with it, a bunch of free stuff is available up on Design Kit. It's also a very beautiful looking book, so it's fun to sit on your coffee table if you're interested in that. And then on the right, we also work with the Acumen Fund to create a curriculum in which it's a 5 or I guess it's a 7-week course now to learn human-centered design. It's called Design Kit, the course for human-centered design. I was actually one of the designers that was lucky enough to be involved in creating sort of the first version of that course. What I think is fun about it is I always like to call it a sort of book club for learning human-centered design. So while you get the course distributed via the internet, the actually learning occurs in a small group of between 2 and 6 people, and it's peer facilitated. So it's a great way both to sort of learn the design process, but also sort of build a bond with your coworkers or your classmates or even perfect strangers that you decide to take the class with. So, and again, it's free, worth checking out. Just Google the Acumen Design Kit course. And then finally, one last pitch that I wanted to throw out there. So Rebecca mentioned that I'm part of the Amplify program, which is funded by the British government, and we're trying to redesign international development. And one of the ways we're trying to do it is by getting more people involved. Generally, it was sort of the same contractors and the same usual suspects that were sort of working for the British government to provide services around the world. Part of what we're trying to do is open up that process, make it much more collaborative, and get more voices and more smart ideas into international development.